Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, I'm going to show you 10 unexpected things that you can use in your gel printing. And all of these things can be found at the dollar store, or some variation on them. It's just a different way to think of things to use to make impressions for your painted pages. Now, the beauty of a gel plate is it's a pre-made plate that lasts for a very long time that you keep in its storage container and basically the packaging that it comes in. And you use it by applying paint or inks, some type of liquid media, to the piece, and then you could remove that paint in various methods. Now you can remove it by using a brush or even the back end of a pencil, the short eraser. You just want to make sure that you don't use anything that's going to jab or scar up your plate. Now you can also use something like a stencil, where if you put it on the plate, when you remove the stencil, it will take away some of that paint that was touching the stencil, so you get the reverse image. You could also use the stencil just on the plate and pressing your paper on top of it. And I have previous videos where I show different techniques. But today's video is about 10 unexpected things that aren't necessarily art supplies, or maybe they are, but they aren't used this way, that you'll get interesting results for your work. I show you the pages on a piece of paper and a piece of deli paper, which is just unwaxed paper, similar to parchment paper or vellum. The difference between deli paper and copy paper is the copy paper is opaque. And if you use the deli paper in your collage work, wherever you apply the medium onto the collage to hold it down, where there's no paint, it'll almost look invisible, so you'll have that image floating on your work. I'll show you how to make those papers and the variations that come up from them. And in my members only video, I have a little more in-depth video, just a quick little peek that I hope you find helpful. So let's get started.
So gel plates come in many sizes, shapes, and brands create them. The generic term is gel plate, and it comes from the idea of a gelatin plate, which is when artists would make their own little rubbery plates out of gelatin, gave that little bounce to it. So gel plates are really useful for making monoprints. They're fun to make pattern paper or monoprinted paper that you can use in collage. I like to monoprint on craft paints, and then I do my pencil sketches over them because then the texture and the patterns show through from that different patterns that we create on them. In today's video, I wanted to show you 10 things that are very easy to acquire from like a dollar store that you can make interesting patterns. Now I'm just going to show you a basic pattern where I take the object and use it to remove paint or put paint onto my plate, and then I'll pull a print. I'm going to use this beautiful manganese blue and a brayer. The idea with a gel plate is you don't want to puncture it. So any item you use to either add paint or remove paint, you should keep that in mind. You don't want any pencils or anything. You'd like a brush as an alternative. And so anytime you find an object that you want to use to either remove paint or add paint, keep that in mind. The gel plate is forgiving as long as you treat it tenderly. So to get started, I like to just put a little bit of color on my plate. You can put the color directly from the tube. I'm going to put it right here on my palette paper. This way I can control it a little more because I don't want to use too much paint. If you use too much paint, it's globby and your impressions don't show up quite well. If you use too little paint, it's a little bit of a problem too. So you really just take some time and figure out what you need, how much you need. It's a learning process. And if you use it as collage paper, there's really nothing you can do wrong. You can always salvage some portion of it. So my gel plate is dyed blue. It doesn't give off the blue unless I put the blue paint on it. But because I use so much paint, it tends to look blue perpetually, and that's fine by me. So that's just inking up the gel plate, again, with that acrylic paint. Now let me give you an example. If I was just to put a piece of paper down, and this happens to be deli paper, and I press it down everywhere, I'm transferring that image. Because I just created that image using plain paints, I just get beautiful blue. Now I can stop there, or I can let that dry and add additional prints over that page. So So I'm going to let this piece dry, but this is just the basic of if you don't use any impression tools on your gel plate, this is the result. Now you can print it again. And again, I have just that first layer of paint, whatever's left over. They call that a ghost print. The idea is that your first print that you pull is supposed to be your intended print, and anything else is a ghost print. It's the leftover paint. So I again burnish it down well, and as you can see, I still get an impression, but it's much lighter. Now you don't have to use just the deli paper. You can use copy paper or cardstock or scrapbook paper. I can usually get at least 3 papers out of each time I put my brayer down on my gel plate, but each time they'll be lighter. I'm doing this now just to clear off the plate. And so I have a third print, very much lighter. And again, I can always print over any of these. So now let's get started making impressions on our gel plate. I'll do the same technique for each one, where I just ink it up with my paint. I'm going to use the same color paint just to make it very interesting. And then I'll show you each object and how I use it. So the first object is this little, what they consider a bath mat. It's got a lot of texture, it's clear acrylic. What I like to do is cut it down to a manageable size that will cover my gel plate, but not be unreasonable. I'm going to take this mat and press it down very gently, and then I'm going to just take a piece of copy paper, and I want to press it down fairly securely to make that impression in the gel plate. I'm trying not to move it around, just to press it down thoroughly. I get a little bit of a pattern on this paper, unexpected, but still interesting. I can pull up my piece here. And now I'll see what type of pattern we have. Put my deli paper down, press it, and I have a little subtle pattern on the deli paper. I'll take a piece of copy paper, clean up the gel plate with my ghost print, and see what type of impression we have. And so then we have a very interesting impression. A lot of people prefer the ghost print to the standard print. The next item from the Dollar Tree is this little kneeling pad. I got it because of the interesting texture. Now again, this is pretty large, so I'd cut it down to size. And the beauty of this foam is that you can cut it to any shape you want as well. So there are a lot of possibilities. I even like the idea of using this handle. I think that's an interesting shape for various things. But for the purpose of today's video, I want to try and encompass the entire gel plate. So I've inked up my plate. I'm going to take this little kneeling pad, press it down everywhere. When I pull it up, you can see that it made an impression because I now have blue on this plate. And I can even take my paper and press it onto the plate and see if I have an impression that way. So off camera, I pressed it down and I have a very interesting impression. But let's see what we got on the gel plate. Again, I take my deli paper, and I have a beautiful impression. It's a very subtle, very small pattern. I love that. Taking a piece of copy paper for the ghost print and to see if we have anything left. And I got a beautiful impression. For my next tool, this is just a broom extender. from the section of the cleaning supplies. These are little silicone or little rubber combs here for the broom. Now there are a couple ways you can use this piece. You can press into it like a stamp, or you can drag it. So I'm going to do both just to see the difference. So I'll start about halfway. I'm just going to gently press over and over again into my gel plate. And then on the other half, I think I'll drag it. So I'll take my deli paper and we'll see what we have. Ooh, that's very interesting. So we have the stripes from where we dragged it and just really subtle little dots. And now for the ghost print. Again, I'm pressing it down fairly well. Beautiful. So that's fantastic. I love the stripes and I like those little dots. So the next tool to use comes from the children's section. It's a little bubble wand. It has a little plate. I'm not going to use the plate. I'm just going to use that bubble wand. It has all these interesting circles. So I'm just going to take it and press it gently onto my plate all around. Lift it up, do that again, pressing it down, and again, and a little bit over here as well. Then I take that deli paper and let's see what type of impression we have. It's extremely, extremely subtle. Maybe it will show up further on the copy paper. And it does. It's also very interesting, these little patterns. This would make a great layering piece. The next tool is a potato masher. Here's the little tag. And so this is the part that we're going to press down. So I'm just going to press and lift, press and lift, and I'll do this across the entire piece. Depending on the paint you use, you'll be able to see more of an impression. This is a very transparent paint, so it's very hard to see the impression. Press it down. Rather interesting. The first one came out the best, but there are little circles showing. Very, very subtle, but you get to see more of the impressions from the shapes. So this might be worth investing in, trying with different paints, and maybe a little more pressure using that potato masher. The next item I got from the baby section. It's a little teether toy. So it's a little ring with these different impressions and shapes on the front and the back. So I'm going to press it down, pick it up, move it, and continue this all the way around. Let's take our deli paper . Very interesting. We have a bunch of little circles. Very interesting. And now with our copy paper for the ghost print, let's see what we come up with. And again, another winner here. Part of it is that the copy paper has that white background, so the impressions really show up. The beauty of using the deli paper is that when I use them for collage, the background becomes very transparent, so the pattern really shows up. So now the next item I got from the art section, the craft section, but I have no intention of using it as a pencil or brush holder. There are 2 plates inside of it that you're designed to assemble to hold your brushes, but I just thought this was an interesting texture, and I have 2 plates to use. I'm going to take this one, and again I'm just going to press it down into my gel plate. And I'll overlap this one so you can see it's covered in paint. Now let's see what comes of it. Start with the deli paper. Very subtle effect. Very interesting. I like that. I can see layering a lot over this, or even just using this as a background for my drawings. The next object that I'm going to use are these ice cube trays. They come in 2 in a pack. I'm just going to use one. You can use it both directions, this way or this way, and I like that interesting effect, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to press it down, make sure I get a good press, pick it up, try and line it up, and press it down again, and let's see what happened. So again, very subtle on the deli paper, but effective. Very interesting. I love that. I can see this as a great background, and using it in black and white would be even more effective. My 9th article that I'm going to use for an impression is this soap saver. It's just a little plasticky. It's got all these little, what looks like string, and I think it'll make a very interesting impression. So I'll press it down and move it. You can see it's coming, you can see the paint is being placed onto that little sponge or soap saver, as they call it. Again, it's just a little bit of texture for the background. And let's see what happens here. So just a little bit of texture, but the real test will be on this white paper. Ooh, and that's a very interesting and textured piece. Love that. This would make great collage paper that I could tear up and use in my work. And my last object to use are these makeup brush cleaning mats. Interesting texture, and they're silicone, and I can even press on the back if I wanted to do something a little different. So I'll press down, pick it up, and let's see what's going on here. So very subtle texture. And a little bit more texture. So now when I'm done here, the way I clean up my gel plate is I'll take another piece of paper, maybe this one that we already have a little bit of an impression on, and I'll just press it here using my brayer just to press it down and to see if I can clean it up. So it took just a little bit of paint off. And then before I put it away, I like to take some unscented baby wipes and I just gently buff all around. This removes any of the lingering paint. Now, as long as you're not using a solvent and you're just using acrylic paint, Even if you don't clean it pristinely, it will still be effective and still work. It won't deteriorate. If you use any solvents, however, it can deteriorate the integrity of the gel plate. Sometimes you can bring it back to life a little bit with just a little baby oil that you buff into it. But I haven't had to do that yet. So I'll let this dry just for a moment, then I'll repackage it and put it away. And I'll do the same thing with my brayer. I'll let this dry, and then I can either peel off the paint or just wipe it with a baby wipe, and that friction will get that paint off. So now let's take a look at our finished papers. So just to review our monoprints, and these are just single layers, which can be used again with additional layers or left as they are. So we have just the gel plate done with deli paper, here and here, the ghost print, much lighter print. And then we have the print that we made using the bath mat, this interesting texture. So this is on the paper, and this is on the deli paper. Very interesting. You can see how transparent it is. The next print was using that ice cube tray. So we got these squares. Now this is a great jumping off point for illustrating them. You can do something in each of the squares or go around it. I've got lots of possibilities here. And here's the deli paper print. The next paper was using that bubble wand. Very subtle and interesting, and again, lots of shapes to play with. And a much more subtle image on the deli paper, but it's still there. The next image was using that potato masher. Got some interesting results. Really one sharp one, the rest fairly faded. And then on the paper, we got some very interesting results. This one warrants more exploring. I can't wait to give this a shot. Again, with different paints and maybe a little more pressure. This technique used the kneeling pad. It's a very subtle pattern, but I love it. I think it adds such interest to that background, such texture. And here it is on the deli paper. So the next one was using this teething ring. Very interesting effects. And again, I love to use circles in my work, so this is a really interesting effect. It could be all different planets. And the deli paper version, very pretty. The next one used the silicone broom. I love the pattern here, but I love the stripes. And for my members, I have a video where I show a different technique using this particular tool. It came out really well. Here's that same print, the ghost print, onto paper. For the next image, we use this tray to make a paintbrush stand. I pressed it into the jelly plate. We got all these interesting orbs. And the same thing here, using it on the deli paper. I used this little bath soap saver, pressed it all over the gel plate, and I got this very interesting effect. Just a little bit of texture. This would be great layered. And here it is on the deli paper. A little more subtle, but still interesting. The last tool that I used was this little makeup brush cleaner, and I pressed it in. You can see all the different images that it leaves behind, the way it removes the paint from the paper. And here it is, far more subtle on the deli paper.
So those are 10 unexpected objects that I use in my gel printing. They give interesting results. As you notice, most of them are circular, but they don't have to be. Just make sure you don't gouge your gel plate. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And if you'd like behind the scenes and extra tidbit videos, please consider becoming a subscribed member to my channel, where you pay a small monthly fee and you get the added bonus of different videos and behind the scenes footage. Thanks for joining me today.